How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, thank you for stopping by. My name's Dylan, and today we're going to be taking a look at only one of the best of tribes right after scarecrows. And today, that's going to be phoenixes. Phoenixes are a completely busted tribe in the game because, as we know, phoenixes burst into flames when it is time for them to die, and are reborn from the ashes. To quote the great myself. Okay, not really, that was Dumbledore. In this case, though, it's more they would come back from the graveyard after meeting some criteria. Anyway, with all that said, let's get into it. To start us off, we have our commander, and that would be Phoenix King Oza Morophon. Phoenix King Morophon. Morophon is a 7-drop that beefs up our stuff by 1 and reduces the spells of the chosen tribe by Wooburg, only getting around the colored mana, though. His effect does not work for generic mana. Now, I know some people consider Morophon cheap for a tribal commander, specifically because of the effects he has with Joda and Fists of Suns. But to that I say, joke's on you. They aren't in this deck, and we barely use some of the colors in here. But seriously, it's more like a 2 or 3 color deck. But yeah, now with that said, let's get into the Phoenix creatures themselves. We're actually not running every Phoenix creature in the game. Instead, we're focusing on the ones that recur themselves from the graveyard and a few others as well. Arclight, Lightning, and Rekindling Phoenix, as well as a few others on the list, have some sort of criteria that has to be met for them to return, and they go straight back to the battlefield with their abilities. And because Phoenixes are able to recur themselves, let's go ahead and throw in a Purphoros to drain our opponents when they come in. Now obviously there are more Phoenixes in this deck, but we've got a lot to cover. So with that said, let's move into mana. Like, mana for days. So we're going to be running Selvala and Neheb. These will generate us absurd amounts of mana, with Neheb giving us a red for each 1 life an opponent lost during combat, and Selvala adding us mana of any combination based off the greatest power among creatures we control. On top of that, she lets us draw a card whenever one of our creatures comes into play if it has the greatest power. And then we have a Treasonous Ogre who, for 3 life, generates us a red mana. Those are actually the only mana generating creatures in the deck. Huh. I think I might have overhyped this section a bit. Anyway, moving on. Since we're in red, we're obviously going to have a lot of combat shenanigans. First up, we got Morag, who gives us an additional combat step for each land that came into play during our main phase. While most of the time this is only going to be 1, with our damage enhancers, the value from 1 is up there. Speaking of, we have Aggravated Assault, Fiery Emancipation, Furnace of Wrath, and Rage Reflection. Aggravated Assault lets us pay 2 red and 3 generic mana for an additional combat step. Furnace of Wrath doubles our damage, while Fiery Emancipation triples it. And Rage Reflection gives our creatures double strike. When it comes to combat damage, red is most definitely something to be feared. Continuing our theme of combat shenanigans, we've of course got to throw in Najeela the Blade Blossom, followed of course by Gisela, Hellkite Charter, then finishing off with a good old-fashioned Seize the Day. Najeela lets us pay Wooburg for an additional combat step, Hellkite Charger lets us pay 5 generic and 2 red for the same thing, Seize the Day also gives us another combat step, and Gisela doubles our damage to opponents while halving our opponent's damage to us. Yeah, combat is kind of a big deal. So much so that I could dedicate this entire video to all the additional combat steps in this deck. Though with all these combat steps, we're going to need some spice to go along with them. Or, in this case, finishers. First up, we got Triumph of the Hordes and Bear Umbra. Those are going to be the only finishers, but yeah. Triumph of the Hordes lets us take out our opponents for 10 damage getting through, and Bear Umbra untaps our lands whenever the enchanted creature attacks, and goes infinite with 3 cards in the deck. Najeela, Aggravated Assault, and Hellkite Charger. Another non-combat finisher we have is Purphoros, Maskwood Nexus, and the World Tree. It's not a great one to rely on, but it is there. Lastly, when it comes to tutors, we're running Enlightened, Demonic, Vampiric, Idyllic, and Worldly Tutor. I think these all go without saying, but for those who don't know, Demonic and Idyllic Tutor are 3 mana sorceries. Demonic lets us tutor for any card and put it into our hand. Idyllic lets us put an artifact or enchantment into our hand. Vampiric Tutor is a 1 mana instant that lets us do the same as Demonic Tutor, but put it on top of our library. Enlightened and Worldly Tutor cost the same at the same speed, and however, one is limited to artifacts and enchantments, the other is limited to creatures. And with that, let's assess the power level of our deck. There are 11 lands in here that come in tapped, and since they make up a third of our mana base, starting from 10, we're going to dock 2 or 3 points. The most common mana cost among cards in our deck is 4, and with only one way to cheat them out, let's dock another point. There are also no mana positive rocks in this deck other than Soul Ring. That'll be another point. Due to the overall slow nature of the deck and taking into consideration how we'll probably be drawing into tap lands mid-game, let's take off another point. And for now, our saving grace. For now, our deck is a 4 or 5 on the scale, but let's see what we can do to improve that score. First up, there are 9 different cards in here that give us an additional combat step, one of which has flashback and 3 or 4 on creatures. For continuous combat steps, let's add a point. We also have 7 cards that buff up our creature and double or even triple our damage. Let's go ahead and add another point. If you've been keeping score, that means our deck is a, I hate to say it again, but either a 6 or a 7. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. If you made it this far, thank you so much for seeing this through. If you're new here and you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing and joining the Discord server. If you'd like to support the channel, we do have a TCG Player affiliate link. Go check that out if you'd like. Links to both are in the description. And with that, I again say thank you. If you made it this far, it really means a lot and your support is very much appreciated. All right, y'all take care.